One of the books I want to share with you for our last couple of weeks together here is from the 2010 list, Anything But Typical by Nora Raleigh Baskin. It's a novel, appropriate probably for middle-aged kids or maybe upper elementary kids, about a boy named Jason Blake, who is high-functioning autistic, Asperger's syndrome most likely. The thing about Jason is that he is very well aware of what his life is like, and he knows that he is not neurotypical, but he lives in a neurotypical world. But he, as his own words will tell us, he is anything but typical himself. Let me share with you a few tidbits and a few comments from the book. Chapter 1. Most people like to talk in their own language. They strongly prefer it. They so strongly prefer it that when they go to a foreign country, they just talk louder, maybe slower, because they think they will be better understood. But more than talking in their own language, people like to hear things in a way they are most comfortable, the way they are used to, the way they can most easily relate to, as if that makes it more real. So I will tell this story in that way. And I will tell this story in first person. I, not he. Me, not him. Mine, not his. In a neurotypical way. I will try to tell my story in their language, in your language. I am Jason Blake. So the book is written in first person, but Jason is trying to talk to us in our language, our neurotypical language, rather than his own internal language. Well, the thing about Jason is, first of all, how he describes being non-neurotypical. School is a challenge for Jason, as it is for most such people. Let me read to you in his words, trying to speak our language, what it's like. School does not always go very well. It is pretty much a matter of time before the first thing of the day will go wrong. But today I've gotten far. It is already third period. Mrs. Hawthorne is absent, and so we are going to the library instead of art class. This is a good sign. You'd think art class would be one of the easiest classes, but it's not. I mean, it's not that it's hard like math, but it's hard like PE. A lot of space and time that is not organized. Anything can go wrong in that kind of space. Think about that. That's a very intriguing personal insight. Space and time that is not organized. Anything can go wrong. Well, the interesting thing about Jason is that Jason is a writer. And Jason is very aware of all the elements that go into story. Plot, character, mood, conflict, all of those kinds of things. So listen to Jason here as he describes being a writer. There are some writers who know things and post them on the internet so other writers can learn them. Some of them say that there are only 7 plots in the whole world. Man versus nature, man versus man, man versus environment, man versus machine, man versus the supernatural, man versus self, man versus religion. It could be a woman too, but they just say man in order to make it easier for themselves, because they all seem to be able to understand it, because they are only speaking in their own language, in an NT language. But I can do that too when I try. Very hard. It means man or woman versus nature. Man or woman versus man or woman, and so on. Other writers say there are only 3 plots: happy ending, unhappy ending, and literary plot. That's the kind of ending that is uncertain. There is a whole book called 20 Master Plots, which I happen to own. and another author who wrote that he thought there were 39 plots. But really, if you ask me, there is only one kind of plot. One. Stuff happens. That's it. Well, as Jason alludes to here, Jason is actually an online participant in a blog-based, internet-based writers forum where people can post what they have written and receive comments and feedback from other people who have posted what they have written. And, people, they do it anonymously. So Jason has a screen name, and one of his closest contributors and feedback persons is someone else whose screen name is Phoenix Bird. And Jason begins to get the idea that Phoenix Bird might actually be a girl. So let me read to you a little bit about what Jason says here about Phoenix Bird. Rebecca. Her name is Rebecca. That's definitely a girl's name. There was a message from Phoenix Bird when I got home from school. She had read my story and my note, and she told me her real name, Rebecca. And then there's a comment here about what she wrote, and then Jason comes back and says, that's the kind of stuff friends tell each other, and her name is Rebecca. I am thinking of what to write back to Rebecca, my friend, who is a girl. And a little later on, Jason makes this comment about being a writer and about stories and plots. The most important thing to do when you are writing a story is to find a dilemma for your character to grapple with. You can have the greatest, most interesting characters, and you can have something really important you want to say, but you need a story. You need conflict. And you don't have to look very far. It's all been written before. In every book in the library, every fable and myth, every play and legend, every fairy tale and story. You can make up this whole new world and all these amazing characters, but it's just that in order to make a story, basically something bad has to happen. Well, Jason, not neurotypical, gets the opportunity to go to a National Writers Convention where he has the chance, where he possibly might meet Phoenix Girl, Rebecca, in person. And the stuff that happens, the something bad, the conflict, is what will happen when Jason tries to function in the neurotypical world at the Writers' Conference, even though he himself is not neurotypical. And what happens if Rebecca finds out who he really is? What will take place? It's a brilliant story. It's very well written. It gives you great insight into being non-neurotypical, living in a neurotypical world. Anything But Typical by Nora Raleigh Baskin.